You're listening to Ask the Expert DSO Edition with Valerie Dangler, brought to you in part by Sonicare, a leader in supporting DSOs and private practices alike. Stay tuned after the episode for a very special message. Welcome, everyone, into this special Fast Facts Ask the Expert DSO Edition. I'm joined by Val. Val, thank you so much. This is our first one ever. I'm so excited. Hopefully you're excited too.
I'm so excited to be back here with you, Andrew. Thank you.
Yeah. So because it's the first one, I kind of want to give a quick little intro of like your experience with DSO and probably why I selected someone of your caliber to do these episodes with us.
Okay, great. Yeah, sure. Gosh, I started in DSOs about 12, 13 years ago now. I was recruited by one of the largest DSOs currently in the US, and they brought me on in a position where they needed help supporting hygienists. And they knew it. And at least that was well recognized. And, at the time, I was part-time faculty educator, practicing clinician. And I had a history, obviously, working in dental offices for the last almost 30 years now. I started as an office manager before I was clinical. So they really liked the fact that I was able to bring knowledge of both operations and clinical to help support their hygiene program. So they brought me on, and I loved it. I actually brought on 15 of my students after, I was employed there. Gosh, to answer your question, what have I done since then? Well, in the last, 12, 13 years, even outside that large group, I worked and consulted with another well-known consultant in the emerging group space, helped supporting emerging groups. DSOs, as you know, when I started, we're about 10% of the market. Today, they're well over 30, closer to 40. What we're seeing, right? They've grown so exponentially, even just over the last 7 years, with private equity and everything coming into the space and really looking at taking practices and growing them together, grouping them together. So I've been in the space, over the last 10 years. I attended lots of the conferences, DICOMA, DEO, ADSO. So, in terms of having the knowledge in the DSO space and working with many of the smaller and larger organizations, I think that definitely has helped me be well-rounded and understand the current climate in the DSO space.
And if for the listeners who don't know, Val, here's the thing about, for me, you love it. You also really love the space, and it shines through in all of our conversations. And so, look, anyone, we're going to do the contact information at the end of each one of these segments. So if you have questions for her, or if you have questions that you want us to ask her in the future, please don't be shy. So Val, I do have a question though to kind of get us kicked off for this, this inaugural DSO Ask the Expert. So can you just kind of quickly, shortly, for those who have been living under the rock, what is a DSO?
Yeah. So again, a lot of people didn't know what DSOs were back in the day, right? So now it's the big buzzword. DSO, it stands for Dental Support Organization. And really how the infrastructure of a DSO is, made up, so to speak, is, you've got the clinical side and then you've got the operational support side. And so the role of the DSO is to come in and partner with dentists per state laws and regulations and guidelines. And really, there are states that you don't have to be a dentist to own a practice, right? So they'll probably function differently in those states, but the majority is to provide the business support. So when we look at things in operations, marketing, recruiting, HR, all the things that, the dentist, a private practice dentist has to be, they wear all those hats. They're the chief marketing officer. They are the HR department. They have to recruit for their people, so they wear all these hats. And by the way, they have to do dentistry all day, right? So the DSO is to help take the burden of those administrative tasks off the dentists so they can practice dentistry and not worry about the operational portion.
I love that. So the hard part is, I think right now you're finding, especially in the labor market, as of this recording, at least, it might be different if you're recording or if you're listening to this recording 5 years in the future. But a lot of clinicians have opportunity to kind of move different locations. Like if they're not satisfied in their place now, they can go somewhere else. And so, how do you find a good DSO if you're a clinician?
Well, isn't that the magic question? I remember when I was a student and my instructor said, don't ever go to a DSO, they're the devil, right? And of course, so then I get recruited and I raise my hand and say, well, I got to go. I got to see what this is all about. And, Andrew, I'm going to say this. I believe in all, not even in just dentistry, right? In all aspects of the world, and the working world, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly and everything, right? How do you find a good DSO? I can tell you in my experience, I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And there is good out there, just like there's good private practices and there's not good private practices. I used to tell my students, go temp. You'll learn real quick where you don't want to go. And so, how do you find the good? It all boils down to me is leadership and support, right? So, as a hygienist, so if we're speaking to hygienists today, how does a hygienist find a good DSO? Well, then I would look and say, like, who do I report to? How are they supporting me as a hygienist? Do I have the tools, the resources, and everything I need to be successful so I can do my job every day? Like, those are the questions you want to ask. What is important to you as a hygienist? Is it continuing education, career advancement, all those things, right? Like, how do you find a good DSO? And then what is the culture? I mean, it all boils down to that. Like, what is the culture? What do the Google reviews say about the organization? Are they retaining other hygienists? Can you walk into one of the affiliated practices and people raise their heads with a smile as you walk in, or does everybody look rushed and like, angry? So I guess I couldn't pin it on like, how do you find a good DSO on one thing? I think it encompasses, at the end of the day, for me, it's always going to boil down to culture and leadership.
Well, I think you nailed it, because you can have a really, really good office in a maybe not so awesome DSO, and vice versa. You can have a really good DSO structure, and then that local culture just isn't where you need it to be. That support, that leadership's not where you need it to be. So, you're right. It's not like there's no magic answer for this. You do have to do a little bit of research, listener. But I would say you can't paint everything with the same brush, right? Just give everything a chance, do your homework. Val, thanks for being here. How can people contact you if they have additional questions for you?
Sure. So I can be reached at Valdentsolutions@gmail.com.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Ask the Expert with Valerie Dangler. Philips Sonicare supported this episode, and they're here to support you as well. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. I have linked a website in the show notes of this episode that will give you access to all of the patient support materials Sonicare has to offer. Sometimes it's hard to know where to start with our patients. Let them help. Simply click on the episode title, access the show notes, and click on the link courtesy of our friends at Sonicare. Have a great week, everybody.